Welcome back to the Ride Boundless podcast. This episode is brought to you by Ride Clean. Ride Clean is the easy, simple solution to cleaning your motorcycle and car. Simply shake, spray, and wipe and get that mirror-like finish, UV protection, and so much more. Check them out at rideclean.co. Use promo code RBPodcast for 25% off, plus 2-ounce bottle for free, plus free shipping. You can't beat that. That's rideclean.co. Super excited episode. Before we get started, I want to give a quick shout out to the Ventura Police Department for accommodating. I want to give a shout out to community outreach specialist Emily Graves just for responding to me via Facebook, jumping on the emails and putting this whole thing together. So big shout out to Emily Graves. Thank you so much for your services. And then my next guest, he's a badass. You've seen him in Rider Magazine. He's a detective with the Ventura Police Department, supervises Special Victims Unit, former motor officer, and still involved in the motor training and is an instructor. My good friend, Detective Quinn Redeker. We're on. What I like about having the headphones on and having a conversation like this, you're so focused. It's a great way of having a conversation.
Yeah, I noticed I ended up listening to one or two of your podcasts, and man, the audio just puts you right there. I'm like, wow, this guy's like sitting right in front of me, and I'm listening to it, Pretty cool. So that's how it sounds now. We're actually not this close physically, but it sounds like you're really right here.
And FYI, we're definitely 6 feet away.
Yeah, based on my training and estimation, we're about 7.5. I think we're
7.5.
Yeah,
we're good.
We're good.
Officer Quinn, your title. How do I
title? Well, technically, right now I'm in detectives for a Special Victims Unit, so I'm a Detective Redeker. Quinn Redeker is my name. So Quinn, that's just who I am. I work as a police officer. As a detective right now. So Quinn's good.
Quinn's good.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Perfect. That's easy to remember. I got a lot of questions on the detective side, but you weren't always a detective. You started off as a.
Well,
how did your career start as an officer?
So the funny thing about that is a lot of times you'll bump into somebody on the street and they'll say, "Hey, you know what? I want to be a canine officer. How do I do that?" And everything starts with being a patrol cop. There's no agency that doesn't start that way. They don't just say, "Hey, you know what? You want to just be a sniper on the SWAT team? Come on down, Ron. We're going to hook you up. That's a Bearcat. We're going to get you up in the turret. Just look through the sights there. Find a bad guy."
It's not that easy.
It's just not that easy. Everything starts from patrol. You really learn the lay of the land. We're at a smaller municipality here in Ventura, 120, 130,000. And the thing with an agency like this is you end up doing a little bit of everything. Much larger agencies, kind of like a Ford Motor Company, you specialize with the assembly line process. So you might be out on the beat, but you don't handle traffic calls or you don't handle certain exigent stuff. Here, because we're a little smaller, you tend to do everything. You'll do some of the CSI type stuff as a patrol cop. You'll do a lot of follow-up things. But when it gets into other specialties like canine or SWAT or motors or detectives, those are things generally you need to be an officer for a period of time to kind of know the lay of the land and understand it and build relationships and be able to speak intelligently enough on those subjects to be able to test well enough to get a spot. So
each thing you want to do has different levels, different testing, different.
Exactly. So, the person that might, ultimately, regardless of what your candidate is or who they are, you hope that they not only want to do it and have that affinity for it, but that they actually have the talent for it too. You're so when you're looking at that person, what they say and, what they know about it. But also you take a look at some of their patrol performance, their report writing, for example. If you're going to go into detectives, what's your follow-up stuff like? What's your interview skills like? What's your, what types of kind of larger cases or things where you've interacted with detectives and benefited them on an investigation?
Yeah.
So those kinds of things are meaningful. If you're going to be a motor cop, for example, your skill sets might be a little bit different. to go back, you start as patrol. I started as a patrol cop, and a couple years in, the really just to I didn't have any expectation of being a motor cop, but I became a police officer specifically at this department. A short story with that is I came from a cosmetic manufacturing background. I came into this a little later, and decided, hey, I'm going to be a police officer. And I kind of went to a few different local agencies and just went on the street and watched and looked and listened, and kind of, what do I want to be associated with these guys or those guys or any of it at all? Because I really didn't need to do it. It wasn't one of those things when I was 6. I said, I'm going to be a police officer.
When I grow up,
Yeah.
you focused on it.
Yeah, and my family's not in law enforcement. I think my dad did a little stint as a reserve cop down in Santa Monica back in the 50s, 60s.
Yeah.
But no family or friends that were in law enforcement. So,
but we were talking about it, and I read that article that your dad. It kind of popped up after your dad did a screenwriting.
yeah. So my dad, he's an actor and a screenwriter, and he was writing a screenplay about human trafficking, and he and I were working together. My dad would come up with some crazy ideas, and that's really his mindset when it comes to writing is take me somewhere I've never been and show me something I've never seen. And if you can do that, then you have something. You have that magical thing, and we'll build something around that.
Yeah.
So in this case, human trafficking was the backdrop for his story, and so I was helping him with kind of the linear components to it to make sure that it made sense and it was believable, and that suspension of disbelief when you watch or read, made sense. And so it essentially led me to doing some info gathering about human trafficking organizations, the plight of the victims, what that path looks like to get them some sort of salvation or help, and ultimately in the United States, you're kind of a letter writer. There are other organizations that you can get involved in overseas to actually get your hands dirty, so to speak.
Yeah.
But out here, you can do that through law enforcement. And there were grants, and I was reading about some larger agencies that had grants for human trafficking. And I thought, hey, I was selling lipstick for all intents and purposes. That's not real meaningful. And I used to call my mom from airports around the world.
Must have made a killing too.
Oh yeah, I used to call my mom from airports around the world, and when I was waiting to get on a plane, and I would tell her, and she'd say, "Hey, honey, how you doing?" And I'd say, "Mom, I failed miserably in my life." She's like, "No, you do great. I got an ocean view house and a cool classic old car, and things are great. But actually, I was miserable, and I felt like an entire failure. And the real reason was I just." What have I impacted really? Making money is great, but once you get past eating, having a roof over your head and being able to take care of yourself, the only difference is the emblem on the hood of your car. You're not really affecting anything for yourself or the surrounding. So it led me down that human trafficking thing. I started looking at law enforcement. And ultimately, I was at the time living in the city of Ventura, and I walked around and I saw some of these police officers, and I thought, man, they look good, they sound good, they just don't seem amped up. They don't seem, they just seemed a little more, pardon for all law enforcement officers out there. I really didn't know what I didn't know, but they just seemed a lot smarter and calmer and more put together than I really kind of gave police credit for at the time.
Yeah, maybe also they had more of a direction in life. They had purpose.
Yeah,
it kind of looked like that. They looked like they were satisfied or contempt, kind of thing.
Yeah, they just looked together, and I thought, man, this looked like a good group of people I would want to be, in the family with. So I put in, I got the job. I was a little older as a cop. Most people can start around 20, 21. Yeah. I was 34, 35. So definitely later in life.
What would you say is the average age?
Probably mid-20s, mid-later 20s.
Okay.
And I think, and I don't have any stats to back this up, but I think law enforcement today, if you look back to, say, it's pretty crazy. Some specialty assignments, say with the FBI, there'd be size and height requirements. Like you had to be, the shortest you could be is 6'2" to even get in with these guys. Like back in the Tommy gun days, suits. These guys,
wise guy, huh?
Tough. These guys. But now I joke that to be a cop these days, you need to be a victim advocate. You need to be an attorney. You need to be a social worker to a degree. You need to be a football player, but a psychiatrist. You kind of need to. You can't just be a guy with big biceps that's going to throw your weight around. It just doesn't work that way anymore. Yeah. I don't know if it ever did, but it definitely doesn't now. So anyways, I became a cop, and over a couple of years, you want to learn how to be a police officer. Ultimately, you just got to get out there and kind of, there's a field training program. But once you're out on your own, backing up your officers, paying attention to what's going on in your city. And one of the things that I paid attention to a lot was the motors would do all these traffic stops. What I didn't know, sort of from a, how would I put this, sort of, just the general consensus was motors kind of did their own thing. Patrol cops kind of did their own thing. And
they kind of don't. And this was going to be a question later I was going to ask you, but they kind of don't know what each other go through, right?
Well, they, practically they know exactly what's going on. And I was going to talk to you a little bit about getting a radio ear. That's a big part of being a new cop is you get a radio ear. And what that means is when you're new, if right now I took you around the city in a police car, you wouldn't understand, you wouldn't hear the radio. You would talk over it, which would feel totally normal and natural. But once you become a cop and you start rolling around in a police car, you hear that thing squawk and you shut your mouth and it's just an automatic and you listen. But more than listening to what the radio is saying, whether it's a dispatcher or an officer, is you listen to the information and immediately you get a snapshot of what's going on, where it's going on, who's involved in it. And you carry that with you so that now you hear that, we use 10 codes. So 1055 means officer needs backup, not emergency, but they need backup. So now I'm doing something else. I'm just rolling around and I hear, they call out, hey, 1055. I'll know the voice. I'll know who it is. I'll know what they're doing, where they are. And that's getting a good radio ear. And a good patrol team intimately knows what everybody's doing. That being said, traffic officers often during the daytime hours are out there writing tickets. So you don't tend to generally listen to I'm doing traffic here, traffic there. I mean, you do, but they're kind of running their own program, doing their own thing. But as a new cop, I just backed everybody up and I backed the motors up to the point where, someone would be like, hey, bro, thanks for backing me, but I'm good. Like, I know how to do this. I'm writing tickets. Like, go, you do you, I'll do me. But I would back up the traffic sergeant at the time kind of regularly, and we get to talking, and somehow word got out that I had ridden and raced motorcycles a lot as a kid, and he and I backed him, and he wrote a citation or whatever, and he came back, and I was still one of those new guys, and he
the F and G.
Yeah, I was the F and G, and he just goes, hey Redeker, I heard you ride bikes, and I go, yeah, I ride. And he said you should put in for motors. And up to that point, the last thing I had connected was law enforcement and my interest and passion for motorcycles. It didn't dawn on me at all. I don't know why it didn't, but it planted a seed.
Yeah, it was, those things happen.
It just seemed, I don't know, writing tickets on a motorcycle seemed like a very different idea than, racing desert or motocross or, doing the track days on my street bike, a whole different world.
Yeah.
But once he said that, I thought, hey, that kind of makes sense. And that could be pretty cool. So that's really what got me into that specialty assignment. But that's the extremely long version of how do you get into a specialty assignment. And it's that be a patrol cop, learn that, understand it. Once you figured that out, you kind of know the lay of the land, look around. What do you want to do? Do you want to be a canine? Do you want to be a motor? Do you want to be a detective? And so I put in for motors. And one of the things with that was being a motor cop's it's challenging on a lot of fronts, and we'll talk about that. But as far as putting in to become one, to get selected to then go to motor school and all that stuff, that's more or less, you need to talk to motors, make sure that, you understand what they do, how they do it, learn a little bit about traffic citations, how traffic court works, how DUIs are, just kind of understand their ebb and flow so that when you sit down for an oral panel, to be a motor, It doesn't look like you just got bored and wanted to get out of the rain, so you sat in to interview. So I talked to all the motors, and at that time I had happened to have we use BMW R12 RTs, RTPs, police models, but I happened to have one of those parallel twin beamers at the time, and so I was familiar with the platform as well, the dry clutch, the way that when you give those parallel twins a little throttle, it gets that torque pull to the side, and so that was part of my interview. I kind of explained, hey, like, I'm familiar with this stuff. I had some riding. I didn't want to sound cocky because I think that there's the better you get, the better you know you can get. So I've found, on an aside, the most humble people I've found are those that know a little bit and those that are masters at something. Because those that know a little bit don't realize. That know a little bit know there's a lot more to know, and those that have learned a lot realize, my God, this is a rabbit hole that just goes on forever. Yeah. So I've always liked to at least try to carry myself as somebody that's still learning.
Yeah, and not only that, but it comes off like the whole under promise, over deliver.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And then you
shine more. It's just that.
Yeah, and then you can keep learning. You don't have to. You don't lose anything when you get beat at something.
There's no point to say you mastered it all. There's nothing for me to learn.
Yeah, exactly. Come on. By the way, though, I did hear at one point that they tried to close down the U.S. Patent Office years and years and years ago because somebody said, "Well, there's no reason. Everything's been invented." So I love that story.
But my other story that I like that is Walt Disney, when he was building Disneyland. They asked him, when will Disneyland be complete? And he said, as long as the human imagination exists, it will never be complete.
Wow.
And that was in 1957.
Yeah.
So I like that answer.
Yeah, too. That's awesome. So I put in for motors. And one of the things that happened to occur was we had a number of guys putting in, but somebody had just washed out of motor school. And there was another one starting. I was interviewed on a Thursday, and motor school was starting on Monday. And typically they like to have you do a little bit of pre-academy because I don't know if you know much about motor riding, but it's fundamentally different than any other kind of motorcycle riding that you'll do. And what's different about it is the way that we use the clutch.
Yeah.
And ultimately the difference is you are essentially, you can call it the cherry patch, the gray area, the friction zone, but your clutch is not fully engaged and it's not fully disengaged, and you're riding these tight patterns. And I ended up talking to this old timer out of Florida, super cool, Russell Groover. He has a book out, super cool old guy. Anyways, he was part of one of the original training. Like this guy was like kind of one of the pioneers of actually programming, a course for people to get these big, heavy Harleys through tight cones. How are we going to do that? Well, if even though it's first gear, you let that clutch out, you're going to be going way too fast.
Absolutely. If
you have the clutch pulled in and you don't have enough momentum,
and you
fall. So it's really weird gray area thing. So
you got to have a good balance.
You have to have good balance, and we do counterbalancing, but you really
balance of like with the clutch, overall balance of how you're handling the bike, throttle, clutch, everything.
Yeah. Just having the dexterity, but so what they had asked me was, they said, okay, well, it's Thursday. How do you feel about going to a motor school? Monday, we don't have time to do a pre-academy with you. Do you think you'd pass? And I'm like, hell, I don't know. I said, I'll probably will pass.
I think you were so cool and mellow because you were at 35. Where if you would have came in like 22, like, oh fuck fuck everybody, it doesn't matter.
They wouldn't even have given me this. They would have been like, this guy's an idiot. Get him out of here. I wouldn't even have had the seat to talk.
He's annoying. Yeah.
So
they said, are you ready for Monday?
Yeah. So you ready for Monday? And I said, yeah, I think I'll be okay. So the funny thing with that is, so Monday rolls around and I go to the school. And they need to know, who's who in the zoo and the students and what they know and what they don't know, so they can kind of figure you out a little bit and what learning style and et cetera. And they asked me, they said, okay, tell me, we want to know everything about your training experience. So I start, I started riding and racing when I was 9, and I go into dirt bikes and I go into trials riding and I go into.
No, I'm sorry, we're gonna make this long. This is gonna be like a Quentin Tarantino movie where the end's the beginning. However, but I do want to focus on you got into bikes, and then we'll go back in.
Okay.
But you got into bikes at 9. Who got you into bikes? Was it your father, your uncle?
Well, I mean, so I grew up in the San Fernando Valley out in Granada Hills. And at that time, this is late 70s, 80, right in there. My parents are in the middle of a divorce. My dad's told me for 3 or 4 years running, you're not going to get a motorcycle because they're dangerous, which he's absolutely right. But I think any SoCal neighborhood with boys in it in the 70s through that period of time, you could throw a rock and hit somebody's garage that had dirt bikes in it.
No.
So that was, I'm rolling around on my BMX bike or my skateboard, and there's dirt bikes everywhere. So half my friends have them already. So I'm just telling my dad, like, dude, I'm behind the 8 ball. We got to get on this. My birthday rolls around, I get a stereo or something, and I'm like, yeah, that's awesome, but it wasn't a motorcycle. And so eventually,
a stereo. Remember when you used to give people stereos?
Yeah, I did. I got a stereo and a Led Zeppelin album, and it was awesome. I was a drummer. It was a game changer, but that's another life. But so the eventually, I think my dad just felt guilty because of the family divorce, and suddenly I got a motorcycle, and it was a silver lining for sure. And it was a 1980 XR80.
Nice.
And I rode that thing. He said, "Okay, here's the deal. We live in a cul-de-sac, and behind us were just hills and hills and hills." He said, "You just can't ride it on the street." And I said, "Well, absolutely." Well, my parents,
sir.
So that lasted about an hour.
Right.
And he left because my dad would visit on weekends, and we'd go down to Westwood and hang out and stuff. So once he left on that Saturday, I have my brand new XR80, and boom, I'm in the hills. I have my Bell Moto 3 on and some High Point boots.
Helmet? No helmet? Yeah.
Bell Moto 3 helmet.
Bell Moto.
Open face or full face helmet, one of the first ones.
Yeah.
And some High Points. And that was it. I didn't, it was kind of funny. I look back at this, and we were at the motorcycle. It was Colby Honda on Reseda. And he's like, "All right, well, we're going to get you, here's your motorcycle." And we're walking around the store. And at the time, he's like, "All right, well, get whatever, like, what do you need?" He's asking me if I need spare tires, if I need chain lube, if I need, like, whatever. And we're looking at leathers and jerseys and Jofas and goggles. And I'm like, no, let's just go. Yeah. And I look back, and I'm like, dude,
super.
I could have got 3-4 sets of tires, a couple tubes, because those just,
you go through them like crazy.
You go through them like crazy. You're riding a dirt bike every single day. The tire was incessantly bald.
Yeah.
So anyways, I screwed that up on the first go. But so I got my XR80 and rode, and my best friend to this day, his name's Dean. He lived, funny enough, so my oldest sister, her name's Ariane. She was
Ariane.
She's equestrian, rode horses. We just like crazy. Her best friend, Kitty, was my best friend Dean's older sister.
Hi, Kitty.
So and both our sisters happened to be 6 foot tall girls, big, strong horseback chicks, and we're the little brothers. She'd beat the crap out of me if I looked at her wrong.
Yeah.
And we got into it a handful of times, and I lost every time. But
yeah.
So we would share the kind of the mountains, the hills, the trails.
Yeah.
There was this horseback community. There was this motorcycle dirt bike community.
It's like a paradise.
It was amazing. There's at the north end of the valley a place called the Three Trees. You race up there, and Mission Creek and Tampa Land. These are places lots of dirt bike people know and would go to. You'd go there on any given day, and there'd be 6, 7, 8 guys there.
Yeah.
But you'd share them with horses too. And because our sisters were horseback girls, we knew as soon as we saw horses, we'd kill our bikes and pull to the side and wait because you'd spook the horses.
Yeah.
Horses scare the hell out of me to this day. And so I would ride a horse, and once a motorcycle went by blowing by me, and I was on the horse and it spooked it, I was like, yeah, I'm never going to do that. So anyway, so Dean taught me, I knew how to ride a motorcycle, but as most people that learn, you're just a rear brake guy.
Yeah.
Dean taught me how to use the front brake. He took me to a hill. He had a 1980 CR80, the 2-stroke race Honda, which was 10 times faster than my XR. But he knew how to use the front brake. He had been riding a while, so he kind of introduced me to the whole thing. Just
like pumping the brakes, 70% of your braking's in the front.
Yeah, exactly. But
especially for people that are new riders, that there wasn't ABS or there wasn't anything. You were pumping, and you weren't sliding around by pushing the back brake all crazy.
These were still drum brake little 80s, but
yeah.
You go down a hard packed dirt hill with just rear brakes. Goodbye. You're done. And that's kind of how I would do it until he's like, no, because I just wad up at the bottom. So I learned how to use the front brake, and he was kind of one of the first people that really got me into learning how to ride. And we rode really, I'd say safe to say, every day together for 7 years. Obviously we got bigger bikes, but from there I got a YZ80 the next year, and again, my parents divorced. Back at this time, it's the early 80s, there was a thing called EST. I don't know if you've ever heard of EST.
No, not familiar
A guy named Warner Earhart, and it was sort of like a self-realization, philosophical seminars, and you'd go there and learn about yourself and
discover yourself.
All this stuff.
Live in the now moment, be present.
Yeah, so... and it was a big deal. I don't know if it was just a SoCal thing, but it was a big deal at the time. So my mom would go, and she's now dating this guy, super good guy, who's my stepdad now. But they introduced me to a guy who raced. There's a club in Southern California called Over the Hill Gang, and it's a vet club, vets 30 and over racing, just motocross. And he had a YZ465 Yamaha. And he raced this club, and like, our son rides. Well, this guy, his name's Bill. He didn't ride as much as he was a racer.
Yeah.
So this was kind of my first introduction to somebody that's like, if you're gonna put gas in that thing, line up on the starting line.
Yeah.
That's where you really want to live. But I didn't know etiquette on a track. I didn't know any of that stuff. So we went to Indian Dunes off the 126 there at the time, and he kind of showed me he'd pull in front of me and tap his rear fender. And he gave me a stern talking to at the truck when we were in Indian Dunes while I'm on my YZ80. And he's like, look, hold your line. What does that mean? It means wherever you are on the track, stay there. If somebody comes up, you hear them coming, do not try to get out of anybody's way. Just keep doing what you're doing. They're faster. They will go by you. And so I'm terrified. Getting on a track for the first time, especially when you're on an 80 and you got some fast guys on a practice day, it is terrifying.
Super terrifying.
Dangerous.
And everybody knows who the newbies are.
Oh, absolutely.
And they fuck with them, yeah.
Oh, they definitely do. So he'd get in front of me and tap his rear fender and be like, follow my line. So he kind of showed me what a track looks like, how to navigate it, how to start looking at apexing, how to look at lines, how to pick your lines, how, just some of the racecraft associated. I wouldn't even call it wasn't racecraft, but for all intents and purposes, that's what we think of it as today. This was just a chubby 10-year-old kid trying to get around a track without getting slammed into by some guy on his Husky.
Yeah.
So I started doing some racing, and then again, like I said, our neighborhood, we're right up against the mountains. We would ride every day. There were tracks everywhere. And on any given day, there's 6, 7, 8, 9 guys out there going. So another guy, Mike DiStefano, in my neighborhood, and I still go riding with him today, but I think I met him when I was maybe 5 or 6, about 5 years older than me. He and his brother Dom, they're from New York. He comes out, he's from the Bronx. He's this rough and tumble, big, strong guy, and he rides dirt bikes. And just the guy was like, I idolized him, but I also was afraid of him.
Yeah.
He was just like a bigger than life guy. He's still a bigger than life guy, but awesome guy. And he's riding CR250 Elsinores, and he's fast, and he's a racer too. So this guy Bill, we'd see him now and again, but this guy now, this Disto, as we call him, he lives right around the corner from me. So he'd throw my 80 into his RV and sneak me into the track, and
let's go.
And we'd go all the time, and it was a lot of fun. So on and on, that whole thing, riding and racing and motorcycles.
So this was like being injected into your blood. This was this was your choice of drug right here.
Yeah, I mean, this is everything, and I think up to this point, you take a look at for me, what it represented was community in a big way. I was also had this the juxtaposition between fear and being completely stimulated and excited was a weird place, and you could kind of live in that space on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
The thing that I'm so jealous of as somebody who's ridden for so many years now, as I look back at a complete newbie kid discovering a small little rise on a hill that's confused and excited by it, and just
scared.
scared, but the majesty of it. And it's like, God, I just wish, like, I think every day I go to the track today and I ride, I think we're chasing that wonder that we had when we were kids,
Yeah.
But the problem now is, your fourth gear pin doing some 120 foot, you're going to kill yourself. And I had some airlifts. It's not like falling over, trying to go over that little rise.
Right.
But that's, I think for me, what it was, was I was getting better at it. And that gave me some status, within that little community. And I just couldn't get away from. I just couldn't put it down. You know, every day.
Why would you?
Right, and just because of the geography, we lived, like I said, right up against those hills in Granada Hills, and
your stepdad welcomed it.
Stepdad was fine with it. I mean, I don't know how much he loved it, but these were things he was in. These were things that were already in place when he came along. He ended up actually becoming friends with Bill, and he got a motorcycle too. He got a '79 Suzuki PE 250 but he was a triathlete too. He did the Hawaiian Ironmans, and at some point he was training so much he stopped riding his PE 250.
Yeah.
And as I grew a little and my dirt bike maybe was down, I'd grab his PE. And all my friends will have stories of that PE 250, throwing them to the ground vigorously. To this day, it's still one of those, like, it's the bike, just, it would never die, and it just, it just killed all of us.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, he was cool with it. And I, once I was, say, 16, and I could drive to the track on my own. So, and it wasn't too invasive, I don't think. I'd just gas up and I was gone, and then I'd come back 3 hours later. But I mean, we rode every single day and all day on weekends, and it was and I assume people with stories about whatever it was that they got into there, like you said, it was in their blood, and you got into that community. I joke with people today, they go, "Hey, I'm thinking about getting into motorcycles," and especially street bikes. I say, man, I don't know. It's really, really dangerous. And their first, of course, push back. Yeah, you ride bikes. And I say, yeah, well, I've been doing it for a long time, and I know it's wrong, and I'm going to get hurt, and I've been hurt, and me and all my friends know. And I just tell them, I go, it's like an old smoker.
Yeah.
I've been smoking for 35 years, and I'm going to keep smoking, and I know I'm going to get lung cancer, and I accept that. But if you're 20 years old and you've never smoked, and you're asking me if it's a good idea, the answer is no, it's not a good idea.
Or if you're 40 years old and you want to get in, it's like, why are you going to start smoking now?
Yeah, exactly. And so I did step out of motorcycles for a while. I got into, this is like late 80s, 90. I got into roller hockey, and which leads you into ice hockey. But a funny thing happened. I'm playing ice hockey, and in the valley, a lot of pickup games would show themselves. And you just show up and you sign up, and I'm playing ice, and there's this guy next to me, super nice, but he seems kind of nervous, kind of quiet guy. And I'm like, hey, how you doing? We sort of shoot the breeze, and he's like, oh man, I haven't been on the ice. I haven't skated forever.
Yeah.
And he's like, God, I'm going to suck. And he just seemed kind of nervous about it. So like, we're going to warm up, and he hops out on the ice, and I see him warming up, and pretty soon he's, skating backwards. He looks really good. Looks really comfortable.
Like, wait a minute.
And then the game starts, and he's within about 20 minutes. No joke. He wipes the floor with everyone at the rink. And when we're all done, I'm like, first of all, I'm like kind of pissed.
Yo, dude.
Like, dude, somebody you're full of crap.
Yeah.
I go, so what's the story here, dude? You seem pretty uncomfortable, and you're by far the best guy here. And he goes, well, and he's very humble. He's super nice. He goes, well, I mean, I grew up in Canada. I've been skating since I was 2, and I skated all through high school. And then I was like, okay. So I had this epiphany, and I thought, and I got into, again, ice hockey when I'm in like my mid-20s. And I was like, why am I reinventing the wheel? I've got all this work already done in motorcycles. I can just get on right now and go do good and enjoy myself. So that was kind of my aha moment, that maybe I should stick to a wheelhouse I'm already good at and comfortable with. Trying new things is great.
Right.
But I got to that point with hockey where I discovered it. It was magical. It was cool. And you have those, anytime you start something new, you get those immediate, just your skill set just screams, you improve, like, that graph just shoots up.
Absolutely.
But then it starts to taper off. And this is like a year and a half into really trying to be Mr. Skate. I'm going to get good.
Yeah.
And then this guy just shows me he hasn't done it for 6 years, and he's just the best guy there. So I realized maybe.
And he was humble about it. It was back to what you were saying, like that whole under promise or where he's like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Hey, it's been 6 years. I feel uncomfortable. Hey.
Yeah. No offense. And not to stereotype, but
they're not.
I'm knocking on wood, I've yet to meet a Canadian person that wasn't enthusiastic, super cool, funny, and just awesome to be around. I'm sure there's one or two, but I haven't met them, so
yeah,
I probably won't.
I met this past weekend, just random. This past weekend, doing this BMW adventure camp, there was this Mexican guy living in Canada doing mining into BMW adventure bikes and owns 2 coffee shops. Nicest guy I've ever met.
Wow.
And a great rider.
Right.
And a great rider. So
that led me into street bikes.
So you tried the hockey. You're like, you know what? Let me go back to what I know. You get back into street bikes.
Well, yeah. I mean, I had.
Did you race them, right?
Street bikes, I never raced. I never road raced street bikes. I went to a lot of track days and Keith Code superbike schools, stuff like that.
What tracks?
Just mostly Willow. Just rode Willow, Big Willow streets. I knew it. I was comfortable with it. A lot of the clinics that I would go to were there, so I liked it. Plus, there was I think it's a Dairy Queen that's that's right near there, and I'm a big ice cream fan, so I would always get ice cream there, and a hotel next door that I would crash at. But my first street bike was a '85, I think, Honda Nighthawk S. It was
That's what I started on.
Oh, really?
That was my first street bike. I started on dirt, but that was my first street bike.
So they had ones it was all black with the blue in the tank or red in the tank.
Right. Mine was the navy dark blue with, I think, red on it.
Mine was the red tank.
Yeah.
Those were the faster ones. No.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, mine had stickers on it too. So I think 2 horsepower or was the stickers.
Yeah.
I can't remember now. Lost in the math, but so I got in. So a lot of my friends that I rode dirt bikes with, we all kind of transitioned to street bikes too. So the hockey thing, that story was still later. This Nighthawk, now I'm like 15, 16. I don't get a motorcycle license because, why should I? Cool. I already know how to ride.
Of course.
And at this point, summers in SoCal, me and my friend Cal, he had a CB750. And basically we'd wake up, we'd race through the canyons to Malibu Beach.
Yeah.
We'd hang out and race back, and we'd take different routes. We'd take Topanga to Old Topanga, and Mulholland, and we just do that every day with shorts and a tank top. Like, I think back,
it sounds like a dream. It really sounds like the California dreaming. If anybody in any other state or any part of the world hear this, which they are, they're going to be like, this is.
Oh man, those times. Just think about it. It's like you're off for summer break. You're in high school. Your buddy rolls up on his cool bike. You're not wearing any safety gear. I have a helmet on, and I think that was a helmet and gloves. Maybe was all I had.
With flip flops or something.
No, I never wore flip flops, but because with having the off road background, I definitely knew what it felt like to hit the ground.
Yeah.
But still on the street, I should have had like a Kushitani full suit and all that other stuff, which I later got into. But now I've just got, I got my suntan lotion, so I can get a little tan, and my
Karate
shorts.
Kids playing at movie theaters.
Absolutely, and we would just blast through these canyons, stupid. But never had a problem. Nobody ever got hurt. But just so much fun, And you'd stay out of the beach, and on your way home, it would start getting cold, and you'd freeze on the way back. It's weird how, on an aside, how the suffering, the memories of the suffering become a big sort of positive aspect of the stories of the memories of it.
Satisfying. That's
Yeah.
that's what you remember.
Whether it be, the chain broke you're out in the backwoods and you and your buddies have to push your bike, or the mud, or you fouled the plug.
Yeah, like I had a buddy of mine. We were at not Neptune's Net. We were up in Angeles Crest, Newcombs.
Okay.
And he was trying to burn out, and he just seized his motor. And we were
Right.
just there for like 6 hours, and that was the story. That 6 hours trying to get Wi-Fi. But yeah,
It's hard to be in the moment and go, hey, this is going to be a great story. I'm so excited
Yeah.
that I'm cold and hungry and we're screwed. Yeah. But it tends to get that way.
everything gets better no matter what the issue is. Everything gets better, and then it just becomes another story that you learn from, or an experience that you're happy to have. Otherwise, what? You went home and then watched TV and listened to some music.
Yeah.
Hypothetically.
And I think we forget about, it's just like anything. I mean, it was really, really hard, but you warm up, scabs heal, stitches get taken out, your medical bills get paid eventually, and you move forward.
It always works out.
It always works out. So, moving around and doing other stuff. The motorcycle stuff I kind of picked back up in my later 20s. Now, I'm a cosmetic executive and traveling a lot, but now I have a house, I have a garage. Because there was a brief period I lived in an apartment, and I'm like, I had a couple street bikes. Within 3 months, they got stolen, and they had I think I had a R1 that maybe had 1,200 miles on it. I bought a Harley Fat Boy. I think it had maybe 2,000 miles on it. They just get snagged. Check this out. I'm living in the valley. I have a Harley Fat Boy, underground locked parking. So it's a gated, locked. You need a code to get in, right? My motorcycle is covered with a cover lock. It has it has a disc lock. It has a cable lock to a iron gate, and it's pushed up against a wall with my truck right up against it.
Dude.
Right?
It gets taken like that?
It gets taken like that. Here's the crazy part. And I mean, it's one of those underground parkings for apartments where it's tandem.
Yeah.
So it's way up, it's way in there. It's two parking spaces in, and there's cars on either side of me too. So this bike is sandwiched in there.
Right.
Let's just say if we didn't move cars, there is no way you and I could get that bike out. No way. So I go down there in the morning. My truck is there. Cars on either side of my truck. It's like 7 in the morning. My cover's laying on the ground. My Harley is gone. But what, and although I was upset and I was freaked out and all that other stuff, what still to this day kind of blows my mind, they didn't even scratch my truck. They didn't scratch the car next to my car. They didn't move my mirror. Like, these guys had to have lifted that bike 4 feet up off the ground. Like, I'm guessing, and again, it was so locked up. I had I think 5 or 6 like legit locks on that thing. You have the bike locks, the steering lock, and maybe a disc lock, but it was locked to a few items and then locked to itself. It was not rolling anywhere.
Right, but the cover was off.
The cover, it
was a lock cover, you said, or no?
So the cover was on, and the cover had a cover lock on it. So
they picked it up for sure.
Yeah, they had to have, but I'm telling you, I had a 4x4 dually, and
to pick it up over that.
Yeah, so I'm looking at this thing. I'm like, like, more power to you, I guess.
Yeah.
Whatever. So I called the police department to file a police report, and the guy, it was kind of funny. I'm not a cop, and I go, hey, I need a police report, blah blah blah. He goes, all right, what is it? Blah blah blah. I tell him, all right, what's your address? What's your name? All right, report number, blah, 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 blah. And I go, well, there's a chain lock here, and the cover's here, and, an investigation might be meaningful. And the guy goes, pal, your bike's in Mexico. Have a nice day. And that was it.
Straight out.
Yeah, and I was like, well, he goes, you have insurance, right? Yeah, do the right thing. Move forward.
Yeah.
So anyways, that was that. But and then I realized,
the little things that stick after time, like little weird comments and
right. But I'm thinking maybe a garage is not a bad idea if I'm going to get back into motorcycles. So I moved up to Ventura. I was still in the cosmetic business, and I got into. I had some street bikes. I really wasn't doing like a track thing. I just had some street bikes. I like to ride, but I started getting into trials riding. And those are the, 2-stroke little gas.
Right.
I had it's a 280 Pro. And these are really, I mean, if you know much about what intrigued me, if you watch any trials riders, these guys are basically, this is Cirque du Soleil on a motorcycle. These guys are acrobats, just insane technique and skill. I look at it like, I always say, like, you like this kind of music or that kind of music. The best musicians, this is just my opinion, as a drummer, are jazz guys. If you're a jazz musician, like a legit jazz guy, you can do anything. You are a surgeon on your instrument. And to me, that's kind of the same thing when you look at these trials guys. These guys are amazing. How do they do this? The balance, the control, the clutch work, just phenomenal. So it intrigued me, and I started getting into that. And I'm watching videos of some other, pro trials guys and working on technique and stuff. That leads me to, what a lot of trials guys do on their time off is they ride unicycles. Like, I didn't know that. Well, cool. So
that makes sense.
It kind of does. I thought maybe it's because girls liked it, because it's kind of a natural, the unicycles and meeting girls. Mm-hmm. But apparently that's not the case, as I found out. My wife confirms with me over and over. But
they look like dorks.
It's like, dude, can you do that somewhere else? Not in front of our house, please.
Yeah.
I don't want the neighbors to see it. So I got a unicycle, and then I got a trials bicycle, and kind of just went down that rabbit hole.
How many people are going to get a unicycle right now?
I'll tell you what, can I plug a unicycle for you right now? If you want to improve your balance, if you want to improve every single aspect of your motorcycle riding, no joke, no BS, get a unicycle and give yourself time to learn it. You're not going to learn it in a day. There are those brave souls that, they're like, I can pick up anything. I'm not going to put it down until I can do it. Save yourself the stress and the heartache. Give yourself 15 solid hours broken up over the course of a week or two. But it's amazing how, here's what it did for me. So again, I'm a big off-road guy, and I have a group of very solid off-road rider buddies of mine, and we'll go out into some tricky trails. And once I started riding the unicycle, something weird happened when I was motorcycle riding, and I didn't connect the dots until, I was far into really being a unicycle guy. And what that is if you've ever ridden, and I'm just going to use it because the example that it hit me was this off-road, you're going through, say, a really rocky, messy, technical section. Maybe you're in the wrong gear. Maybe you get cross-rutted. You have that tinge of, oh crap. You have a moment to make a decision about what am I going to do. You feel things are starting to fall apart on you. And that fear or that tension or that discomfort in no way benefits the decision-making process or what you're actually going to start doing and manipulating the controls to make you maneuver through this challenge that you've put yourself in.
Right.
When you ride a unicycle, once you can actually ride it, for the first, 100 hours, you're going to be riding it, and about every 2 seconds, maybe 1 second, you're going to have that fearful, oh my God, I'm falling. And you know what that's like when it's like, oh my God, yeah. I'm going to fall. And it's scary, and it's kind of paralyzing.
Yeah.
Well, after about 1,000 of those, you still maybe almost fall, but for some weird reason, there's this shift in your mindset, and what you start doing just by natural muscle memory is you just start making that adjustment without thinking so much about it, without sort of worrying about it or identifying what is it. Oh my God, I don't know if I can do this. So what starts to happen is you ride your unicycle, but you're not scared anymore. You almost fall off, or you do fall off.
And the other thing is, it's not very forgiving. You have one mistake, like a motorcycle.
Yes.
The consequences is going to be
the focus. And yeah, that's a zen place that I like about unicycles too. It's one of the few things I've done, motorcycles as well, but it's one of the few things I've done that requires 100% of your focus all the time. You can't just start thinking about something else. You're off that thing. So what I found was I started riding with these guys, and there was sections where there's very, very kind of like, the crescendo of your ride where this is the technical spot.
Yeah. And
I was just blazing through them, no problems. They were harder, ruddier, trickier, the downhills, whatever it was. And I was like, wow, that was easy, really, really easy, and had no issues. And I eventually over time realized, wow, what's actually now happening is I'm riding a motorcycle and these crazy weird things almost falling. The bike's doing this and it's doing that, and the wheels are locked up, and I'm cross-rutting and I'm sliding off. I'm not going where I want to go, and all my brain was doing was, okay, what do I need to do now? We don't judge it. We don't worry about it. And all the fear and tension went away from my riding.
Yeah.
And I was just able to just kind of work on a solution set moment to moment.
And I'm sure you work out all those weird muscles like around the knees and legs that you usually don't work out because you're going left and right and forward and back and your hips are moving. So you have a natural posture.
Your core definitely is a huge part of the unicycle. You know,
yeah.
But
you could bend your knees like side to side, forward, back, hip movement. Like there's just so much stuff going on there.
Yeah.
That it was just naturally being applied to the motorcycle.
Yeah. So that was just kind of a
no
weird deal.
No matter how uneven the ground was on off road.
And so when I see these guys trials and they're riding unicycles, I didn't really think about it. I just thought, well, they do. Maybe it'll make my trials riding better. I didn't really realize it would help everything.
Yeah.
So, so the trials riding was pretty cool. The problem with trials, at least where I live, I know it's big in Europe and other places, but have you ever done something kind of really crazy where you weren't sure you were going to make it and you pulled it off, but you were alone and it was like there was no one there to go, dude, that was insane. We did that. Trials riding was like that. I'd ride around, I'd challenge myself, and I'd look around for a witness, and I'm all alone. And I'd call my buddy. I tried. I can't tell you how many phone calls I made.
So much.
I'm like, hey, God, Dean, dude, let me tell you, trials is where it's at. And they're like, yeah, dude, I'm not really interested in it. But
Right.
Call me when you want to go to the track or whatever. So eventually, I ended up meeting up with I attribute, and this is going to sound probably like I'm slamming on trials guys, but it's kind of like I'm trying to join a Dungeons and Dragons underground club.
Yeah.
Because none of my friends will join it.
Right.
And then I get into this club and I'm like, well, we're playing Dungeons and Dragons and I like the game, but that community thing I talked about, I'm not really feeling that part.
Yeah.
So ultimately, no offense, trials is awesome.
Oh, they're going to be so pissed.
Yeah, I'm in trouble
now. They're not going to sleep now.
So eventually I got out of it, and that was kind of a weird revelation too. It's like, why do you ride? Well, the motorcycle's this and it's that and it's fun and it does this and that for me. But again, that community thing, that having a witness, having somebody to share that with. I go to the track now with guys. This guy Deesto I told you about that I've known since maybe I was 5. Another guy, Mike, I've been riding and racing with him since 7th grade.
Yeah.
And there's something pretty cool when we get off the track and we sit down and we're giving each other a rash of crap about how horrible all this did.
You ride like shit.
Yeah, dude, you suck.
That was kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I won.
But we have history. We have stories. We can give each other crap about stuff that happened in 1982.
That's amazing.
I mean, it's just so cool. And that trials thing wasn't building that, which retrospectively surprises me.
It was probably just all competitive.
Well, it was, I was learning and I was getting better as a motorcycle rider, but I wasn't getting fulfilled from the standpoint of wanting to go back because it was missing that element of it, which was that teaming, partnering, having witnesses, having friends, having other people experiencing their joy and pain in it too.
Yeah.
And that's been something, now, I'm 50, but now I look back at what motorcycling has meant to me. And, when I was 20, I never would have told you, well, the reason I ride motorcycles is for community. It's like, What are you talking? I mean, it was because I want to go as fast as I can and beat as many people as I can. Exactly. So.
And Malibu and everything else. And
yeah, exactly. So the sun in my hair.
The sun in my hair, your tanning lotion.
All right.
Love it. So now this is your background on motorcycles, and now you're in the police force.
Yeah.
And they're saying, you're ready for Monday. Or do you have any experience?
Exactly. So I'm sitting down with them.
You're like, a little.
Yeah. So it was kind of, and again, like I said before, if you've done something long enough, the one thing you know is there's always somebody bigger, badder, better than you are.
Always.
And
always.
Always. And, you can go to any local track and there will be some, 8-year-old that will just school you. And you're like, what is that? So, definitely not sitting down with these guys telling them how the world works. But, I kind of gave them, they wanted the nuts and bolts of my experience, the types of platforms I've been on, and so I kind of talk about track days, and, I've had, 5 or 6 different GSXR 1000s over the years and Hayabusas, and done a lot of just track day stuff, no racing for street, but a lot of schools, dirt track school, and they politely look at me and they pause and they seem kind of uncomfortable. And the guy says to me, he goes, I'm gonna level with you. I'm gonna be honest, you're probably not gonna get through the program. And I was like, I'm thinking to myself, what are you talking about? I can do it. I can ride any motorcycle.
Right.
I've done it all.
But you know too much.
So what they said was, yeah, your muscle memory and the way that you ride, police riding is so different. You're probably not going to get it. And I said, and so I was like, well, maybe you're right. So
That's so interesting.
It was kind of a mind
eye-opener.
Yeah, it was definitely. So what I told him at the time was, I said, here's what I promise you. I'm going to shut the F up. I'm going to do exactly what you tell me to do. And nothing else, no more, no less. Exactly what you tell me. So
you were doing front wheel wheelies.
No, but I tried to get my mind wiped of my experience.
Right.
And there's something really freeing about being an FNG, about saying, you know what, my training and my experience, my ego, whatever that is, throw all that in the closet for a minute and just shut up and listen to somebody telling you how to do something.
Yeah.
It's very freeing. You get to be a beginner. You kind of get to have that majesty of seeing that little rise on the hill and really progress. And that, that just shooting up skill set was the opportunity I had.
Yeah.
I thought so.
And it's interesting because obviously the CHP and the police department have been riding bikes forever.
Right.
So you get to see why they're doing things a certain way and completely different from what you were used to.
And there were things, for example, you go to...
And again, it's back to that 35-year-old thing, because if you were 22 years old, you'd be like, what? That's not how you do it.
Right.
They'd be like, sir, this is how you do it. I'm sorry.
No, exactly. But, and they were right. Just some major fundamental differences, for example. Most people, especially if you're a track day guy, you cover the front brake when you ride. Why? Well, maybe you know how to do trail braking and you ride tracks, or maybe you just want to improve on the reaction time in an emergency situation. You cover the front brake.
Right.
Riding motorcycles, I always cover the front brake. My finger rests there. It lives there. Rule number 1 in police motor training at a basic school, and understand that I'm sure there are schools that teach covering the front brake, but everyone I've been to and most of the people I've talked to and argued with, they are do not cover the front brake at all. You don't touch that front brake. And when you need the front brake, it's 4-finger full braking. 4-finger
full braking.
Yeah. The clutch, on the other hand, 4-finger cover the clutch.
Even if the bike has ABS or regardless?
Well, So my thought to that, because over the years going to these police motor competitions, and I've had a chance to meet and talk to a lot of guys from all over at least the United States and Canada and Mexico and a few other places, Australia. From what I can gather, it's a very antiquated program. And when I talked to this guy, I mentioned Russell Groover, who kind of was one of the forefathers of the process and the program that went in place to teach guys how to ride. This guy's talking about riding a drum brake Harley back in 1940 something, and in a torrential downpour in Florida. Well, yeah, I'm gonna go with 4-finger braking on that.
Yeah.
Covering the front brake's probably going to be meaningless in a situation like that.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you a funny thing is I've had guys tell me, these master instructors, not to rag on anybody, but we'd be at a motor competition, and there's all sorts of different events, and the biggie is the timed course, who went the fastest. So this one in particular, for example, I'd be the winner. I'd get first place, and I'd have these guys. More than one guy has argued with me, like, yeah, but you don't ride correctly. You ride wrong. So that really discounts.
As you're holding your trophy.
Yeah, it was. But it opened my mind to the idea of why So if there's because I look at it this way, if you and I are shooting guns,
Yeah.
the best technique is the guy who has the cleanest target. It's just that
Right.
simple.
And the bullets the closest, et cetera.
All that,
Yeah.
the winner of a road race, I'm going to go with his technique probably, the
Yeah.
guy with the best workout program, I'm going to look at the one who's probably in the best shape. I'm going to start there. But that they looked at me and said, "You don't ride correctly," and discounted the fact that I beat everybody in this avenue, this forum that we're using, it made me ask sort of, what's the purpose of why we do it? Why is it this way? And I kind of went down the rabbit hole with a few people and was never able to get a solid answer to that question. And meanwhile, we have 2 big disc brakes on the bike, ABS. I can do on a police bike, I can do a stoppie with 1 finger.
Yeah.
2 fingers, I can modulate better. So I usually use 2, but I can do it with 1 finger. You can do full, you can lock that thing up, assuming you get the ABS to fail, which
Right. Or if you turn it off intentionally.
yeah, you can turn it off, or you can make them fail on the police bikes. There's a little process to it.
Do they have like my BMW right now has the link braking? Do you guys have that too?
Yeah, so there's 2 different kinds of link braking. The way the Beamer works, from my understanding, is when you grab front brake, it also applies rear brake, which is unusual.
It'll control how much front and back. Like you'll do 60-40, 40-60, 50-50.
Yeah,
depending on the situation.
I'm not sure what the ratio is on that, but my understanding is yeah. So if you put on rear brake, it does not grab front brake. Whereas say a Honda, like an ST 1300, other Hondas, I think I used to have a VFR 1000.
Right.
No, I'm sorry, it was a 700.
Okay.
And it had link brakes. Well, the way Honda looked at link brakes was most of the motorcycle public doesn't know that 80% of your braking is front brake.
Right.
So they're only using rear brake. So we're going to apply front brake for them.
Right.
Because they don't know what the hell they're doing. So in that scenario, you touch the rear brake and it grabs front brake for you. You could literally, my VFR, I could ride around and never touch the front brake because every time I was stabbing the rear, it was grabbing front. You could feel the front brake pull.
Yeah.
Obviously, I didn't like that, but it's gonna save lives if you don't know what you're doing. BMW, for whatever reason, is exactly the opposite of that, and I think to a far lesser degree in the actual application, whatever that ratio is. I mean, I think I've never really, to be honest with you, when I'm grabbing front brake on my Beamer, I've never really noticed the rear brake.
Yeah.
But a little brake, for the trail brake and dragging the rear a little bit, it's never necessarily a bad thing. It's not so.
Well, I think that would be the reason why they went with front to link.
Potentially.
And then the back not, because the back, when you're going off trail roading, you use more your back brake as you're going down hills and up rocks. That would be my guess. I'm not sure.
I don't know. We're gonna have to take a beer bet on that.
Yeah, I'm done.
All right.
I'm in.
All right, deal.
in.
We're in. Anyway, so I go to the motor school, and and I just say, I'm going to be a new guy, and I'm just going to shut up, and I'm going to do what they tell me. And it was pretty awesome. It opened up my eyes to this clutch modulation thing where we live in this friction zone. It's a strange deal. But basically, when you're going really, really slow, first gear, full lock turns, and you're dragging the clutch a little bit, those bikes will do some pretty amazing things.
Yeah.
And over the years, so I got through the program. I didn't have any issues. Once you figure that part out, that's the thing is there's only a couple things that are different. Yeah. They're worlds away from what you know. But once you know those things, everything else applies.
Right.
You're not suddenly riding different, when you're going down the freeway per se. There's some motor etiquette and just some of the ways that they teach you about, staggered formation or riding 2 up or riding single file. There's things like that we do. But as far as actually handling a police motorcycle, that's really the only real kind of brain teaser where you're like, whoa, and I'm struggling with that. And I've seen guys that are amazing riders that just can't do it, because it's a weird thing. So, but after that, yeah, it opened my eyes to that. And then the competitive guy in me was like, hey, somebody told me, he's like, hey, they have these police motor competitions you can do. And of course, I wasn't really doing much in the way of racing dirt bikes at the time. And I'm like, well, I'm on this thing every damn day. This might be kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I looked into it a little bit.
A trophy?
I can go, compete against some people and, put it on the line a little bit.
Yeah.
That's kind of exciting, So
Does the department cover that? Do you get paid for that too?
no,
Random
so
question.
So no, it comes up all the time. The first thing I'll read a forum and somebody will say, they'll be like, yeah, well, I'd be the best in the world if they gave me a motorcycle to destroy and paid for me to go compete, and I rode it every day.
Okay, dude.
And to a degree, I agree with some of that. I mean,
don't.
I look at like I'll read a motorcycle magazine and you'll see them or it's like looking at a truck commercial. You see some guy off-roading up the mountains with his brand new $90,000 pickup truck. You're not going to do that because they're going to destroy 7 of them making that commercial.
Right.
So if I get to the top of the hill and say, yeah, look what I do with my truck, it's like, yeah, dude, it's not your truck.
Yeah.
You're not really going to do that.
Yeah.
So the way that generally worked with our department was I wanted to go to one of these events. So I started asking, if I could move my schedule around a little bit. And the whole the idea was this: look, I'm gonna bring this city-owned vehicle to a motor competition. And here's what I pledged at the time. My sergeant, his name was Ryan. I said, hey, look, I'd really like to do this. He's the gatekeeper. He can say no, or we don't do that. But he was super cool about it. And I said, here's what I'll do. If I break anything, I'll pay to get it fixed. I will pay my own way. I won't take my own time. I'll take my own time, sorry. And so he said, all right. And I would bring my wife and we'd go on these cool adventures, And looking back, there's a million liability reasons why not. Like anything. If I was to tell you, show me, if I got our city attorney in here and said, okay, I'm going to give you some scenarios. Where are we exposed? It'd probably be a laundry list.
Right.
But the knock on wood positive thing was I knew that when I went to these things, I couldn't break the bike. And I also knew I need to win these things because if I'm risking all these things
and losing
and getting 28th place, I don't think anyone's going to care. Hey, I need to go to another one.
Yeah.
So part of
just do your job.
Yeah, just try to do your job.
Quinn, come on.
Yeah, and we had other guys in the unit that good friends of mine that never hesitated to remind me that it's not really my job to try to be a motor guy and do competitions. Like, how about figure out how to write a traffic ticket, dude? So even to this day, they're like, hey, you weren't really in motors, So we started going to those, and it was just fun. We'd get out for the weekend, and I could compete, and to be perfectly honest, I can't explain exactly the why, but the style of riding that a police motor competition requires, that tight, big, heavy bike, clutch in that gray area, it all just seemed to gel for me. And when I say that, I mean that if you were to see me on a motocross track, you'd be like, yeah, that guy's pretty good. Yeah. I go good. Have I ever been paid to ride a dirt bike? No. If you saw me on a track day on a street bike, yeah, that guy's pretty good. Is there 1,005 guys that would wipe me up? Absolutely, there are. But I'd go to these motor competitions and I'd meet these guys, and one of the guys in particular that I saw regularly, super good dude, super competitive, but he was like a national dirt track pro. Like he got paid to race dirt track. Other guys that got paid to race like 250 GP road race bikes. Right. Other guys that were AMA pro.
It was a career. This
was their career, and now they're cops and they're getting into these police motor competitions. And for whatever reason, it all, and I'm just like, yeah, I was a fast intermediate. Okay, that means nothing.
Yeah.
But I beat these guys regularly, over and over and over again, and it was just
they're gonna love you.
It was a weird. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. So the funny part for me in it all is I'd get these people want me to hold court about how to do stuff, and I'm like, well, there's 5 guys over there that all have way more experience, and I would bow down to any one of those guys. I have no idea how I'm beating them. I'm telling you, perfectly honest.
I know.
I'm a pretty good rider, but
I know the tricycle or the unicycle.
Yeah, it could be the tricycle too.
The unicycle.
Tricycles are, they can be useful. I had a big wheel actually. It was a big wheel.
Big wheel, yeah. When you were 2 years old. It's probably the unicycle.
Yeah.
Because it's all slow maneuvering, balance. You counterbalance your weight, like which you do a lot. You shift your body weight.
I started learning how to do different things. Like if you ever watch supermoto or even road racing where they'll back the bike in on a turn and basically they'll slide it into a turn. I started learning how to do that on the police bike.
Yeah.
And that,
Whoa.
it was just kind of weird, but it worked.
Yeah.
Never had a problem with it. And I would start trail braking, definitely. But I learned interesting things with the clutch, this gray area thing. I learned that, like when the bike's leaned over and you're going slow, if you kind of pop the clutch a little, it's obviously going to pick, you're putting power to the rear wheel, it'll pick the bike up.
Yeah.
Well, so if I'm going to do rapid transitions from the left to the right, back and forth, I found if I could, when the bike's all the way cocked over, if I just give it a little pop at that lowest point, I'm speeding up my transitions.
Pop in the throttle or the clutch? When you
Pop
the
that clutch out a little bit, and it's putting just a little, sort of a little jerk to the rear wheel to just sort of snap the bike up to center. Then I'd fall over the other way and snap it back up to center again and kind of go back and forth. And so then I'm like, okay, well, wait a minute. If I use my feet, I could maybe move it a little faster. So when I would snap it up, once it was center, I would force the other side. I would basically get my butt off the seat and put all my weight on that peg to push the bike down the direction I wanted it to go. So I'm doing these two things where I'm kind of like stomping with my feet, then snapping with the clutch, go the other side, stomp with my feet. Once it's past halfway, stomp with my feet and all my weight, and then snap the clutch back the other way. Then I started learning, wait a minute, if I get it past center, I can do those things. But also if I tap the front brake, anyone knows if you're going slow and you're leaned over and you grab the front brake, the bike wants to hit the pavement.
Right.
But if you're careful with it and you just give it a little tickle, you're speeding up the process with which that bike wants to hit the ground. But if I catch it with the clutch, I can throw it back over the other way.
Interesting.
So it's a weird, and this is just, I would spend, I rode every day as a motor, but then on a Saturday, we would go down to our training facility and I'd set up cones and put up tennis balls on the cones and ride really tight patterns, but I would play around with the bike. And that's where I also learned, like, if I got the bike going about 15 miles an hour, hammer the brakes, almost ABS, and then go full lock and do a tight turn and just keep a little bit of brake pressure on the rear brake, the front wheel will be spinning faster than the rear, and the bike will think you're losing traction, and it automatically goes into ABS. And now it's kicking into ABS.
Right.
But if I stay there and I do like 2 circles, it automatically brake fails. And now when I ride the bike,
when you do 2 circles, it automatically brake fails?
So
Sorry.
no, it's a combination of things. So you get the bike going about 15 or 20 miles an hour,
Right.
hammer the brakes, front and rear.
Okay.
Once you've hammered the brakes pretty hard, you have to go hard, full lock, any direction you're comfortable.
Yeah.
And once you're going full lock, now the front brake and the rear brake are on. The front wheel's moving at a faster rate than the rear because you're doing a circle, right, from a full lock. So it thinks that you're sliding. So now the ABS kicks in.
Right.
You keep your foot on the brake just lightly while you'll feel the ABS kicking your foot off the brake.
Right.
But you keep it on there just so slightly, but keep in a circle,
Got
and
it.
then boom, you'll see the brake fail light will come on. And now I can just lock the brakes up.
Yeah.
And now I don't have ABS at all on the bike until I turn the key off and reset the computer.
Right.
So I learned that because one of the things with motor comps is you're doing a lot of tight stuff. And I was finding how come sometimes when I'm practicing, the ABS kicks on and blows me out of the pattern. It stands the bike up and now I can't stop.
Yeah.
So I figured out how to duplicate that error that it was doing and that's how I could start backing the bike in.
Because once you have the ABS off, you can manipulate the bike more.
Yeah.
And that's what was happening a lot when I was at a Harley shop working there when they brought ABS, and all the old timers and all the people that try to do stunts were like, I don't like ABS. You can't, control it, pump it, slide your back rear.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But so I got a lot of pushback from people that say, well, okay, they'd see me slide the back end into a section, and they'd say, well, obviously he's just screwed with his ABS.
Obviously.
So sometimes some of these events, man,
Everybody's face is like, bro, come on, man.
it's like, what are you doing? So I would get sometimes I'd show up at some of these and I'd get like the whole motor unit from the host agency.
Yeah.
And they'd be surrounding my truck and they want to inspect the bike. I'm like, well, you're cheating. You're cheating at this event. So, that was one of those things. I run into that. I started to run into that with my wife when I go into these events. But my goal was don't hurt.
But was there a rule saying?
So it was loose, but
Yeah.
it became much more strict.
Yeah.
And it was a couple of the rules were initially it has to be a police bike. So what I did when I first started is they break them up in classes.
Like a police issue.
It has to be a police model.
Right.
But
you can't modify it.
It's like I can't bring a little supermoto bike and compete against your Harley. I'll
Right.
smoke you.
Yeah,
That's
of
not
course.
fair. So it's got to be this. It's got to be a police platform. Within those platforms, at least in the Western U.S., where BMWs are kind of prevalent, you'll have maybe 1 or 2 Harley classes, and then they'll have, if it's a smaller event, they'll just say metric, and
Right.
metric will be if you have a Cowie or a Beamer or a Honda. Or if it's a bigger event, 100, 150 guys, they'll break that up to say Honda class, Beamer class, Kawasaki Concourse class. If it's really big, earlier when I first started, they'd have an BMW 1150 class and then the 1200 RTP class. So,
break them up.
so when I started, some of the faster guys up north were on Hondas, these ST1300s. So, of course, I'm telling my wife, I'm like, hey, let's buy a police ST1300 so I want to beat those guys. I'm going to go up against those guys. They were the faster guys.
Right.
And I had an 1150. My boss had a 1200. So with some of these, I'd be hauling 2-3 bikes to go compete. And I'd be like, all right, I'm signed up for the
Because you would
Honda.
need the different bike for each
Yeah.
competition. Got it.
Because they're a little different. One bike might be a little quicker, but it's longer. The wheelbases are different. The saddlebags are bigger on another one. So just to make it fair, if there was enough bikes, you competed against guys on your same platform.
Yeah.
But I wanted to compete as much as I could. So I was in the 1200 class, the 1150 Beamer class. I was in the Honda ST class.
Fuck, you were committed. Like
I was super into it.
Yeah.
And then once I started doing that, that first year, they stopped allowing you to have more than one platform. You had to only sign up. You had to pick.
Yeah.
And so by then, I got a 1200 Beamer and I sold my Honda because I did pretty good on it. I like the ST1300, by the way. It's a great platform. So, my wife and I we'd go to these things. And obviously I was excited about it. I was training like a beast. I was riding all the time. And I just, winning was cool, but there were some pretty cool people there, some pretty good challenge. And I just liked to go compete. It was fun. So for me, it took the place of racing.
And I'm sure your wife and the kids, it was like a whole experience.
It's just my wife at the time. And she, she liked it. We'd go to some town we'd never been and go out to dinner. And it was just a fun little get out, leave town for the weekend and go have an experience.
Right.
Winning was awesome. Don't get me wrong, but I have boxes of trophies. Who cares? I can go buy a box of trophies.
Yeah.
That's
what I'm going to do after this podcast.
It's all that. And it also, especially that first year, it was that, like, again, it's that rapid improvement that's pretty exciting to see and feel,
Yeah.
Versus being, pretty good at something where you just need to spend more and more and more time to even get incrementally better,
Right.
So I wasn't breaking the bikes. I was starting to kind of get some notoriety doing these things, and that helped get a little bit more department support to go to these things. Then I became an instructor, which helped because we had our in-service trainings, and I was sort of in charge of the curriculum, keeping track of who was getting trained and what your deficiencies were and this and that. And then that training role kind of helped justify going to more of these things. And I'd do about a dozen or so a year. But we would have little police and fire safety days where, we do demonstrations at the mall or something like that. And I'd come out and, slide the bike around and do some stoppies and, just, wave to the kids kind of thing and talk about bikes, I mean, that was a cool thing too, is 99 out of 100 motor cops are motorcycle guys. So
like they're riding motorcycles on the weekend or on their days off.
Yeah. And if they didn't start that way, they've now been a motor cop enough to be like, hey, I'm proficient at this. I like it. But I love the community of motorcycle riders. And these guys are the same. And the funny thing, I will just, again, on the side, is as a motor cop, you're still a police officer, but I'd interact with guys that are, riding like idiots on their sport bikes or even Hell's Angels on their Harleys. Did I make traffic stops here and there on that? Sure. But they're always, for me, felt like we're all motorcycle guys, So there was something kind of
like
cool.
We're still, we share that.
Our jackets look different, but we are still a community. You could still take a guy from any biker gang. Yes, maybe, I'm not going to speak on, are they doing illegal stuff? That's not my point is, though, you could take that guy and we could have a conversation about that time he twisted the throttle for the first time and went, oh my God. And his eyes lit up and his head exploded. We have all that together. And there's something that's super, super cool about that. And the fact that I'm on a police bike doesn't take that away. It's in you. It has nothing to do with the platform that I'm on. You could put me on a scooter and we're still motorcycle guys,
Yeah.
Me and some of my buddies battle with the little, the Groms.
Yeah.
You're still a rider,
You're still a rider. You're still on two wheels. You're still risking your life. You're dealing with the same traffic that we're dealing with. Not at the high speeds. I say this. I've said this on this podcast a million times, and I knew I was going to say it again because I wanted to get your opinion on it. And I don't care that I said it a million times because I think I have to say it a million more times. I believe 95 to 99% of motorcycle accidents is rider error. Would you agree with that or not? On your experience,
I think that's a complex question. Personally. I think that motorcycle riding is much more complicated. What you can do and where you can go and the situations you can put yourself in compared to the true and honest, in my opinion, level of experience you need to manage all the eventual scenarios you may find yourself in. So to say operator error, I mean, you could argue that, you take some guy with 30 years experience and he's been to every training class and he practices and trains. You could put that guy in a million different situations and he's going to be okay. Yeah. Cars cutting in front of him. Suddenly the road, there's a pothole and there's gravel and there's a wild bull in the road. You take a good rider and he's going to be like, boop, 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 navigate right through. It's not even going to be a conversation. He's still going to be thinking about his grocery list. You take a new rider who passes what I would argue is one of the simplest, and I don't mean that in a positive way, but a simple test to put yourself on something that you could go 200 miles an hour on. You're asking, that's a recipe for disaster. So that guy who's new, even if he has, his intentions are good, I don't feel like that the system has set him up for success. I don't think you know what you don't know. And suddenly, oh, it's kind of raining a little bit. Oh, there's grease in the roadway. Oh, that's a little gravel. I don't think a new rider goes around a 50-mile-an-hour turn like somebody, who has a lot of racing or track experience or just a lot of experience on the road and immediately makes the adjustment to see and automatically know, okay, the gravel's there. I'm going to stand the bike up a little bit to avoid losing traction. However, there's grease in the road. Okay, well, so maybe I'm going to pull in a little tight and go on the inside of all that stuff. Those kinds of little quick math problems and your ability to immediately manage that's something a new guy doesn't have.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's rider error. But I guess my issue is it's like saying, you're picking a fight, a 10-year-old against a 25-year-old MMA fighter and say, would you say this 10-year-old got his butt whipped because, technique related? Well, it's like, well, yeah, but,
Well, yeah, no, I get, that's a valid point. My only rebuttal to that would be is based on the statistics of most accidents that end in T-bones.
Right.
Or on turns, when people are on turns, those are the two most popular, accidents. And when I see that, I'm like, well, okay, the T-bone one, again, I've been at the Harley shop and
sure.
I got a guy that comes in crutches. And what happened to you? Well, I was going down Van Nuys Boulevard and this car turned in front of me and I hit him. And then you talk to the motor cop, that were servicing their bikes. Hey, what happened to so-and-so? Well, he was going 60, 70 miles an hour on Van Nuys Boulevard.
Right.
And the car did not. And those are I'm talking about the average,
Yeah, so I would say that most people.
And you're not a person I want to rebuttal.
No, we're good. We're good. We're
You
good.
won, bro. You won.
We're all
Only
good.
after a few beers.
Okay. I think most people that find themselves in that situation ride like they drive. And I just think you need to ride like you're naked and alone and no one sees you.
Naked and afraid.
Yeah, that's like, honestly, I tell guys that are, people that are new, pretend pretend every second you're on the bike that you're invisible. And if you do, you shouldn't, and don't get emotional when somebody tries to kill you because they don't know you're there.
Yeah.
And I used to get in arguments with people about this. They'd say, well, I had the right of way. And I say, well, you want to die? You're right, but when you're about to walk in a crosswalk and there's a 50-mile-an-hour school bus coming, do you want to just stand there and say, you know what, I have the right of way, I'm going to keep walking? Or are you going to be prudent and maybe just let the bus go by, And I think with people on motorcycles, they don't, they feel like they have the same level of, this is my road as much as anybody else's. And damn it, I'm on a motorcycle and I belong here. And yeah, all that's true. I can tell you an aha moment for me. I was on a police bike. There was a vehicle pursuit. This guy was running, got away from the cars. And I'm like, oh, I'll have no problem keeping up with any car on a city street. No problem. So boom, there he is. I put it out. And the way the protocol works, and I think it was most agencies, but with us, is you can initiate a pursuit as a motor, but because of the danger, the risk factor on a motorcycle being in a pursuit, basically
The danger for yourself.
Yeah. Once somebody, assuming all other things, the conditions are good, and no one, you're not speeding at 100 miles an hour toward a school zone or something like that. Assuming everything else is generally safe, so to speak, as safe as it could be in a pursuit. You can stay in it until a car is in position to take over, and then you back out. Because they get in an accident, that's one thing. You're basically on a motorcycle, or you're going to get. But I was following this guy, and at some point he realized, from what I can gather, he's this. I'm not going to lose this motorcycle. Suddenly he made a really, really quick U-turn, and kept turning, and suddenly I have this raging bull coming at me. And yeah, I can.
So he's facing.
He's coming at me.
He's coming at.
He's coming at me.
Wow.
And now we're playing. Now it's like I'm suddenly in this game of chicken, and I was able to navigate around, and all that was fine. But it was a weird thing, both as a police officer, but as a motorcycle rider. I don't know. I've never had somebody in their car try to take me down when I was on a motorcycle. I've had people turn into me, and I've had people, like basic road stuff, veering in your lane, but yeah. This felt, wow, this is deliberate. This person's steering to come get me. And it was that moment I realized, like, wow, it's obvious, but you ride a bike enough and you're good on one, you feel like you're kind of invincible.
Yeah.
And suddenly I just felt naked and like it was scary. It was like I might as well have been on a bicycle and somebody wants to get me. And I, that moment I carried that with me. Now when I started riding and kind of continued with that idea that, man, I am so vulnerable on this thing. Yeah, I might be,
especially chasing cars and stuff.
Exactly,
so
exactly right.
We don't think about it, yeah.
So if there is one thing I see with most people that get in accidents, I'd say is that they get comfortable, because bikes are amazing these days. And you don't realize with, a mild twist of the throttle, you went from 30 to 90 and you didn't even know it. Like you get on a modern street bike and you get on the freeway, that bike it's bored out of its mind at 85 miles an hour.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. You go through a canyon pretty fast, and all a good bike tells you is, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Yeah. Let's keep going. Oh, you have knee pucks and you know how to use those. Let's keep going. Yeah. Let's keep going. So where does that take you? You know? So rider error, but I don't know all the particulars, but
the stats and stuff. Yeah.
But in Japan, I mean, you might know more about this, but my understanding is a motorcycle license originates from a CCs. So the bigger the CCs, the harder the testing is.
Right.
And the longer you have to have that license, you can't just, challenge the course and get a 1,000 and do a lot of cool stuff. You have to get a 125 and work up to a 200 or 250 and then get up to a 500 maybe.
Right.
And there has to be intervals in between where you've demonstrated that you know how to handle that size, maybe a year, 2 years. But one of the things that I thought was interesting was that they'll have a motorcycle test, and that test is twofold. One is sort of physical, and one is their perception of your ability to manage what you're doing. So, okay, you've got to, whatever it is, you got to go through these cones and turn around. They watch you do it, and they decide if it looks like you did it with enough calm, cool, smooth control and skill, you know how to handle yourself.
Yeah.
Not just, he didn't hit any cones, or hey, he stayed in the circle. Here's your license, sir. No.
They're looking at you.
Yeah, they're looking at you and how ready is this guy to carry this license? Because, and I can tell you this as an instructor, I've been involved in conversations where people end up not going through the program. And why it's a bummer, because they're a friend of mine. I know they really wanted it. And who am I to tell you what you can and can't do? But I don't want to put you into a situation and bless you and say, okay, you're good. And now you go out and you get creamed by a car. Like, that's just, I don't,
right.
I know you're.
We don't want to wish. Yeah.
Yeah. So
we don't want to be almost part of that.
Yeah.
That's like one of those things. Should I get a bike? I don't recommend it, but do what you got to do.
Yeah. So to me, the
yeah, it's not so black and white like you said. It's more complex than what it actually is.
And I'll tell you from I talk about blazing the canyons when I was 16 on my NIDOC. One thing that's so different than I recalled was, and I tell guys that either don't ride or that haven't in a long time, is cell phones. Everybody looks like a drunk driver on the road.
Yeah.
And what's weird though is we're used to it now. You see people kind of wandering around, straddling their lanes.
I've said it many times. You start driving, and as you split lanes, you realize you get to see inside cars, and you get to see people's rearview mirrors, and the mirrors are facing the sky, they're facing the ground. People are on their phone, people are eating, people are doing all kinds of stuff. I actually, quickly, what do you think about this? 3-4 years ago, if you asked me about self-driving cars, I would say hell no. Like I don't trust a machine. Right now, this last year, I'm realizing I think I trust a self-driving car more than most drivers, because I see the emotional aspect, that distracted side, the mad side, the upset side. Somebody lost a family member. Somebody lost. Like, I just see all the shit people deal with, and I'm trusting this human. I'm trusting a human to do this that has a machine that's 3, 4, 5,000 pounds. That at any moment, they can just slam into anything, which obviously it doesn't happen because we drive up and down the 101 and 405 with thousands of cars. But
I don't disagree with you. I don't know what that technology really looks like, but I would say, we're definitely going there.
Yeah.
But if you have some of these people that have like 2, 3, 4 DUIs and they're still out on the road, I would probably trust AI to get them home more than, obviously they're not demonstrating that they really have a great plan. They're not doing great. So yeah, I could totally see that.
Yeah, I would look. Another question. I was in Dubai, and Dubai has beautiful new roads because it's a new city, but they don't have much highway patrol, police officers or patrol, and basically what they do is they have a whole camera and sensor and infrared systems. If you speed, they mail you a ticket, and it's an expensive ticket. Just very simple. You speed, you get pulled over, or you don't get pulled over. Tickets in the mail. If you rent a car, they tell you, hey, if you speed. And Italy was the same thing. Why hasn't California, we're not going to say the U.S. because we don't know what's going on with the U.S., but why hasn't California implemented a system like that? Wouldn't it save more money or be more?
I can't speak to all the bureaucracy associated with that, but I know that we, in California, that would be considered a speed trap, but I believe in Nevada they do have that.
Yeah.
So it does exist. It's not just
speed trap.
It's not just a blatant, a little sign. There usually will be, I'm just going off of recollection. So those of you who are in other states and say, wow, you got it exactly wrong. My apologies. But I'll see a highway patrol and a sign saying, hey, like you're entering, that we implement this and we use this, and and you'll get a ticket. Absolutely.
No.
I mean,
So it exists, but it's not just.
yeah.
California's still kind of gray on that.
Yeah, I mean, for us, you have to articulate that you saw the violation. It's an infraction, so
Right.
I can't take anyone else's word for it. And arguably, and we have that challenge with the intersection cameras right now too. It's like, well, is that evidence or is it hearsay that thing took that image and on this date and time this thing happened? Because I didn't see it happen, but does that hold up in court? So, and that there's been ongoing court battles with stuff like that. But I don't know. I don't know why.
That's random. It's a little off the sideline, but just
Yeah.
I was wondering to get your opinion on that. What's the craziest? That police chase you described, but what's another crazy police chase that was just? It was just so crazy you'll never forget it, for whatever the turnout was.
I can't think of so just thinking about that concept.
And I'm sorry, and to add to that. Also, the difficulties of riding a police motorcycle and the sirens and the lights and stopping. Right. Like, what was the most?
Well, let me walk into that a little bit. First of all, the one thing that when I talk to people about, wow, what's it like being a motor cop and this and that, and I think the one thing a lot of people don't appreciate is, first of all, I'm a police officer. So what does that mean? Obviously, yeah, you write tickets. I get it. You're a cop. Well, what it means is I'm there to protect and serve. I'm there to back up an officer in an emergency. A hot call comes out because, we talk about that radio ear. As a motor, you have a radio ear and you're listening. You know kind of what's going on. The other thing that you learn really fast when you're a motor, especially in a city like us, is there is no one in the law enforcement community that can get from one point of the city to another faster than a motor cop.
Yeah.
I know every nook and cranny of the city, and I'm a motorized bicycle, essentially. I've gone upstairs, downstairs, train tracks, hills, fields. Like, I can get anywhere.
Really? Yeah.
Absolutely. We're a beach town. We have little farms. We have hills. We have trains. We kind of have everything. And so you get a call of like an infant not breathing, or you get a call of someone's in a foot pursuit, or we have a pier because we're at the beach. I had a call. I heard a call go out of a guy that was drowning from the pier. Well, I can get there fast. So that's one thing that you realize as a motor officer is your ability to impact kind of wild, exigent, unfolding situations is, it's not only valuable, but it shows itself pretty regularly.
Yeah.
And so I can just tell you one of the times on the pier, I got to the pier before any cars did, but also at our pier, you can't just drive like, say, Santa Barbara. You could take a car down the pier. I think you have to move a few pillars and then you can take a car. But I can hop on the pier and just jet down it on the police bike. So I got down there. Everyone's pointing, and boom, I'm over the side, going down some railing, pulling some guy out of the water in all my police gear.
Sure.
And it wasn't crazy in the sense that like I was in a chase, but it was
bullets were being fired back. There was an explosion, a helicopter.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
I mean,
but no, yeah, of course.
But things you realize. So
the utility
of it, but that leads me to one of the biggest things. So a buddy of mine who owns Total Control, Lee Parks, racer, he owns the California safety program for the state, the Total Control program. And one of the things he's always razzed me about was, yeah, look at you guys in your T-shirts. Like, good job. Like, nice role model.
Yeah.
And he's he's just giving me
teasing,
crap.
yeah.
Yeah, totally. Super good dude. But, and I have to explain, okay, so, and this is just a little funny thing I do with people. I said, okay, so that the term ATGAT, all the gear, all the time.
Right.
Right? ATGAT. And guys I talk to, hey, dude, dress for the crash. And hey, I agree, dress for the crash. I'm with you. And if you saw me on a Saturday, I'm in a full suit with a back protector, chest protector, all that stuff. But then I say, okay, so here's what I want you to do. You're going to go motorcycle riding. dress for the ride. You can you can wear whatever you want. I'll outfit you however you want. Say, okay. So what does that look like? I've got maybe it's a full suit or no, 2-piece, a jacket. I've got this, I've got that. And hey, if it gets cold, I'm going to wear this, I'm going to wear that. Okay, good. You ready for your ride? Okay, cool. Now what I want you to do is I want you to ride over to the parking lot there, and you're going to get off your bike, and now you're going to get into a foot chase. You're going to do a 1/4-mile foot chase. Okay? Are you ready? And before that race, now let me ask you, do you want to change any of what you have on? You have to keep your helmet on. Is that the helmet you want to wear? Is that the jacket you want to wear? Are those the boots you want to wear? Let me think about that. Okay, well, I guess it is 85 out. I guess I'll take the jacket off, and I don't know. Maybe I'll put. Okay, you know what? I'll put different boots on. I'll put like something I can kind of run in better. Okay, cool. No, that's great. All right. So then you run your 1/4 mile. All right, good. Yeah. So now what I want you to do, I want you to imagine now, you're about to get into a street fight with 2 guys. They're gonna fight you. They're gonna maybe grab your helmet and start trying to torque your head. They're gonna try to get your gun from you and shoot and kill you. It's a morbid conversation. I get it, but now if you know you're gonna get into a fight, what do you want to have with you? What do you want to be wearing? And so on and so on. You're gonna climb a wall. You're gonna get into a gunfight. You're gonna deliver a baby. You're going to wear this. Here's the other caveat to this is you're going to have this on all day. You don't get to take it off. You're wearing it all day. Okay. So what people don't realize is that's when I say I'm a cop first. Yes, I'm on a motorcycle, but I have to be ready to get into a gunfight. I can, and like I already sort of explained the utility of a motor. I've, subject seen with a weapon, broke into a house, a burglary in progress. Guess who's the first one there? I am. Yeah. And I've gone in and boom, I'm gunning down some guy. I'm pointing my gun at somebody, and there's 2 people in a house, and he's got, he's carrying a TV, and this isn't good. But I don't want to be in a full suit, so. There are weird things like that and yeah, we have vests on. So my pushback on my outfit is, if I'm sliding at 90, my chest and my back are pretty much protected with the bulletproof vest. But you have to remember that we have so many roles that we play. Traffic is, it's one component to it, but you learn really fast when you start realizing, hey, I can really affect this bad situation. I can go save this person from drowning. I can go execute some CPR before anybody else gets here. I can stop that person from breaking into that house or stealing that or hurting this person or, and those types of things start to, I don't want to say they dictate what we wear, but, because sometimes, especially at night, we do a DUI checkpoint or whatever, and it's really cold out and we're just there. We might dress a little warmer for the weather, but by and large, I have to be ready
for anything,
and
legit anything.
Absolutely, and so
that's stuff people never even think about.
Yeah, you don't
delivering a baby.
It's kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
No, I was just trying to go on a motorcycle ride, man, and get a cup of coffee, maybe gas up, hit a canyon. No. You have to deliver a child. Crap. Okay, coffee's gonna have to wait on that.
Damn it.
So that leads me to just kind of like as far as motorcycles go, you go to these, you go to motor school and all that. You learn how to ride a police bike, and you're good. But what's really different too, mindset wise, if you and I just went on a Saturday ride, and I took my personal bike, my concern is the bubble that I'm in immediately. My head and eyes are for right or wrong, my philosophy when I ride, at least on the freeway, I like to ride a little bit quicker than traffic. I'm not talking about splitting lanes, but like if traffic's doing 70, I'm probably doing 73. And my reasoning behind that is I like to just have to worry about what's in front of me. It's just, it's less math for my brain.
I do the same thing. Yeah, I was going to ask you too. I really do. I don't like cars hovering around me or being behind me.
When I'm starting to get past and kind of I feel like I'm getting boxed in and people aren't paying attention, it just makes me uncomfortable. But that's really the only thing kind of on my mind.
Yeah.
When I'm a motor officer, I'm listening to so I'm riding, I'm working, what gear am I on, my clutch and braking and what's on the road, not crashing, not getting hit or killed by anybody who's not paying attention also. And now what's going on in the city? I got to listen to my radio. Now, okay, well, you're there to, look for traffic issues. Okay, so I'm looking for traffic problems. So now I'm no longer just concerned about the bubble around me. I'm actually riding around at speed with my head on a swivel looking around. So that's kind of sketchy. Things happen in a split second. So
Yeah,
I better be,
that's insane.
you got to be paying attention, right? So now I'm listening to the radio. I'm looking for violations. I'm trying not to get hit or killed, paying attention to just kind of what I'm doing from a, just a riding standpoint. Okay, I see a violation. Now I have to figure out how am I going to get that person pulled over? And I mean that from the standpoint of I'm going to have to either jam through traffic, go up and around a curb, go on the other side of the street, whatever it might be. I got to do that safely. Now I got to communicate to that person that I'm pulling them over. So I got to start pushing buttons, sirens, lights. I have to communicate to dispatch. Hey, here's who I am. Here's what I'm doing. Here's where I am. Now, while all that's going on, I got to, motors will tell you, depending on where they're pulling you over, my first thought is cover and concealment, because if you don't plan for it, shame on you. If you don't think that somebody's going to pull out in front of you and try to hit you, shame on you for letting it happen. Like that possibility needs to be in your brain, right? Well, the same thing happens when I make a traffic stop. I better be thinking gunfight. Not because, and that doesn't mean I'm going to run up there and scream and have my gun drawn. But what it means is I don't have time for a split second decision-making process in an ambush. I'm already behind the eight ball. I'm already in a bad position.
Right.
So
and if there's somebody else in the car, or
multiple people in the car,
yeah,
and sometimes you get weird things like somebody will not initially pull over. They'll make a left, they'll make a right, and then they'll pull in front of some place. Maybe they're on their phone. So the first thing in my mind, they're calling their friends to pull up. Okay, we're going to meet. We're going to be right here, and we're going to ambush this dude. And that's in my head. And here's the thing. It sounds crazy, but it happens. It happens. It happens.
I'm sure it
it's happened
all the time.
I've watched video of it. It's crazy. So that's in your brain. So when I'm coming to a traffic stop, I'm going, okay, where do I want to hit my lights and sirens? Because I know, okay, there's some trees up here. There's a building here. There's a car there. So those are all the things kind of going on in my mind. And then as soon as they stop, as soon as my bike stops, it's just as fast as you can do it without looking like a psychopath. Get your kickstand down, get off your bike, and assess. Just like stop for a second, just like really, really fast, and then just hit the pause button as best you can and look and watch and wait. Which side do I approach? Okay, if they're both going to start shooting at me, where do I go? And who do I address first?
How do I cover myself? Or
all that. Am I going to use the bike? Is there some other place I happen to have? But those kinds of things, if they're going to run, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? If those two, the passenger, the back seat, two people run, am I going to stay with the driver? Am I going after the passengers? What am I going to do? What am I going to say? Where am I? How am I going to put that traffic out so that responding officers know what's going on and what to do about it to help me?
Yeah.
So all the while you're also thinking, okay, did I park far enough off the road so I don't get clipped by a car? Because lots of times that happens. Motor officers get knocked, their bikes get hit, or they get clipped and they get, knocked off the road. So you're thinking about those things. Also, and you are thinking about, did my kickstand go down on something solid? Is it on off camber? Because there's not a motor alive who didn't put their bike down and it fell over.
Yeah.
It's just, there's not,
Doesn't exist.
And I'd like to meet him because, he's magical.
Yeah. Or it's his first day.
It's his. He did it on his first day.
Yeah.
I know it. So those are the things, just to give you kind of an idea.
That people don't realize what moto officers, let alone officers, deal with.
Yeah.
Every day, every hour, at least. How many times does a police officer pull over somebody?
Well, a motor, generally, I'd say as a general, you're going to get 10 citations a day. You might make 15 stops, 20 stops. It really depends. If it's a specific, like you're working, that we have grants that are just, hey, we're gonna give you overtime just to go look for seatbelt violations. So if you're working on a grant, you might be a little more
active,
hammering and active on those things, because you're
like
doing
tinted windows or whatever, seatbelts.
Yeah, but so yeah, say 20 stops, a day.
So 20 times a day, this is all the emotions. Most of the emotions, if not all the emotions that a police officer deals with.
Yeah, and obviously once you do it and you get good at it, and being good at it means that you're not completely, you're strategic and you're efficient at thinking through those processes, because you can't be freaked out about it. And, you got to be ready to shoot, you got to be ready to move, you got to be ready to communicate. If you're not ready to do those things, then the mental stress as you're building up that ability, it's exhausting. When you first start on motors and you go home every day, beside the fact that the whole environment you lived in is on you, like your arms are dirty, your face is black, there's no amount, you're putting sunblock on all day, but it's just, you just shower and you just look like you've been in a coal mine. It's brutal, but your mind is just exploding you're just exhausted because of all the math you've had to do,
Yeah.
I mean, if you've ever done like a track day or something where you're learning things that are a little new, and you come back and you're just super exhausted, you're like, I don't get it, man. I didn't ride that much. Well, you're just trying to process that new bit of information, and that's the thing with those types of scenarios is it takes less mental math to be really good and efficient at figuring those things out. So over time, it's not like you're just you're losing your brain, but it is a lot of work, and it's definitely a different mindset than a civilian just riding his motorcycle.
100. Yeah, because a civilian's just looking in front of him, and that's it.
Yeah, you try not to get hit, and
That's insane. That's insane. That's an amazing scope to look at things that you guys go through. What's one thing that you see that you're just like from knuckleheads, or that you just see that police officers just get so annoyed that you would like give as a message, like, hey guys, like we see this all the time, just stop doing this, or take care of this, or avoid doing that? Like, what's something you just see that's just so ridiculous and it's an easy fix, but
as it pertains to motorcycles, I'm guessing
anything, motorcycles, anything, cars, whatever the case is, just
well,
put your plates on,
I don't know. I mean, the funny thing is the longer I've been doing this job as a police officer, the more forgiving is maybe the wrong word, but the more relaxed I'll give you an example. Is 90 miles an hour fast on the freeway? Is that worthy of a speeding ticket? Technically, sure.
Yeah, sure.
Right? But if you and I went and we watched speeders, well, here's what starts to happen. You first start writing tickets, and I'm not a freeway guy, but there's areas in our city, and I'll work speed on a freeway. So I'll say, okay, that guy's going 75. I'll pull him over. After I've done the job as a motor for a month, that guy's doing 75. Nah, there's bigger fish here. Yeah. I'll see a guy going 85. I'll nab him. After 6 months, a year, I'm waiting for that guy that's going to do 100 by here, because he's a real problem. And after a while, you start seeing so many things that are wrong that your threshold for what is wrong gets higher. Your tolerance for the kind of the things that maybe originally was shocking and unusual, and hey, that's wrong. That guy's got tinted windows. Everybody has tinted windows. No, technically not everybody, but you could write tinted window tickets ad nauseum. And so you start saying, okay, well, I have a certain amount of time. I have a certain amount of focus. What's important for me to do? There's this thing, the spirit of the law, the letter of the law. Letter of the law, 66 miles an hour over the speed limit. It's citable. The spirit of the law is some guy's doing 105 on his phone. We need to get that guy. And if you've had enough people going 67 and you realize, geez, maybe I can cut some of those guys a break and we can find something more significant. That's what I see personally. That was my experience, and that's what I see with cops in general, is that when you've become a cop long enough, you see things that are so amazing and out of the norm that what seemed out of the norm before isn't so, oh my God, this is crazy. Knock that off. You're like, God, dude, could you please? Come on, let's all get along. Let's all move on. So I think in that way, for me anyways, I've become a lot more tolerant and better at talking to people. People say, what does it mean? Like, what do you need to be a cop? Like, and you think, like I talked about the old FBI guys, 6'2" or taller. You need to have the ability, you need to be a salesman. You need to be able to, the badge means nothing. My ability to help you understand why it makes sense that you do something that I'm asking you to do, that's the win. I don't want to fight you. I don't want you to hurt me or kill me or hate me. I don't want none of that helps me today or tomorrow. Because today maybe you're a guy I'm pulling over, or you're a guy I'm dealing with because you're drunk and you're angry, your girlfriend broke up with you, whatever. Tomorrow you might be the witness to a major incident that happened, and now you and I have some type of bridge built between us. That's what I've learned with this job, is that some guy runs from me, he's not going to Canada.
Yeah.
He's going around the corner, he's throwing his bike in the garage, and I'll see him Wednesday.
Right.
It's and things that are maybe initially when you start this, that's a big deal, that's a problem. Over time, you're like, it's not such a big deal. It doesn't mean that we don't write tickets. It doesn't mean that people don't get arrested. But I think that by and large, we're more tolerant of the general public about doing kind of wacky things. I mean, at the end of the day, you don't pay me to go around and note all the things that are going right with everybody.
Right.
I don't know those people on my day. I only
course.
get the people that are having a bad day, that are pissed off, that are causing a problem. Those are the ones I interact with. And
Right.
I think, how can I not get killed, not get beat up, and like actually, it sounds crazy.
Serve
maybe
the community.
And I know that it sounds maybe like a canned answer, but it's challenging, and it's kind of interesting to figure out. Okay, I have a problem. How can I come at this in an unusual, maybe different way to impact it so that everybody wins? And I mean, I think all of us could think back, and I'll just use the motor officer example, but I grew up again in the San Fernando Valley. LAPD were the motor cops, and I can remember doing some stupid illegal things, whether it would be a dirt bike on the street or speeding in my car, and having some really cool, supportive officers to kind of help me understand the why. Some gave me tickets, some gave me breaks. That wasn't the takeaway. It was mostly just like that idea that they connected with me and helped me, kind of brought me into that bubble of understanding about kind of what's going on and why we're here and why we're doing what we're doing. That's the exciting part to me about this job. One of the things in my interview with Motors, as I said, one of the things that's exciting to see as a cop is when you talk to somebody and you can see it happen. It doesn't always happen, but you'll see somebody have this look about them when they look at you, almost like they really were positive you were going to be another way, and they are pleasantly surprised you're some other way.
They're puzzled. Like, what?
What? This is not how I expected this to go.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to be this way.
I've experienced that.
And I think as a motor cop, granted, reputation is motor cops are the most salty, evil, scary. The cops are scared of motor cops.
Right.
But as a motor cop, I said there is no other position in this department where I will have as much interaction with the general public, not necessarily people that are have high recidivism rates and are problems, but these are like soccer moms and your attorney and your construction guy. They are going. Every time I stop you, every time I interact with you, I have an opportunity to change that opinion and get that aha moment where they go, "Wow, okay, I get what I did. This guy's a guy. This guy's doing a job. He understands my situation." Maybe I give them a warning, maybe I don't. But I've had so much fun with that opportunity rather than looking at it like I have an authority that you don't possess that allows me some sort of bionic power. Because the truth is, you don't. You don't have that. I used to joke when I would get non-compliance with somebody, be like, hey, buddy, like, you got to go. F you, blah, blah, blah. And I'd look at my partner and I'd smack my badge like it was broken, like the batteries weren't working.
Yeah,
and I'd be like,
hilarious.
what the hell's going on? This thing is not working. And you learn really quick. All the badge means is that you can be screamed at and spit at and fist fought, So that's the long-winded answer to, I don't think there's any one thing that that any people do that they need to stop doing.
Right.
We need to figure out the opportunity to communicate a little bit better. And that's the opportunity here for me as a cop anyways. Motors gave me that. So yeah, it's cool in that way.
It's very cool. And this is why I wanted to have you on the podcast, because I wanted people to hear you communicate stuff that you guys deal with. It's not that you guys have this mission to make everybody's life miserable or give them a $500 ticket that they can't afford. It's just really you're trying to protect and serve, and there's rules, and certain rules and guidelines should be followed. And I want to thank you for allowing me to come here and to sit down. And I think we have to do this again. Because as we're talking, I have so many questions, and I'm like, dude, we're pretty deep in this episode, but there's so many more questions. So I definitely think that there's going to be a round two.
Absolutely. I want to leave you with one thing that I always thought was funny, and as motorcycle guys, at least street guys, you'll appreciate. I'm going to give you a question, and think about your answer. Question is this: what does a green light mean? Solid green light. What does that green light mean? Now, somebody asked me this. It was a salty old motor at a motor training. He said, "What does a green light mean, Redeker?"
Green means go.
Green means go. And I said, well, as a motor officer, very knowledgeable and wise, it means that I have the right of way, sir. Is it a stale green light? It's been green for a while? Yep, it has. Oh, yeah, I have the right of way. He goes, now you're wrong. Okay, what does a green light mean, pal? And he goes, it means the light bulb works. I went, oh my God, he's right. That's all that means. And so here's what I want you guys to try to do. First of all, always, and this has saved I'm going to guess at least my lower half, if not my whole body, twice. When the light's green, no matter what, I still clear intersections all the time. And 2 times, I could see a car going 50, 60, blast through a solid red. They're on their phone. And if I wouldn't have stopped, I would have got hit and probably killed, or at least definitely injured. And then the second thing is, if you're going through an intersection, if there's a big truck or even just like an SUV or another car, use that vehicle to shield you from the oncoming traffic. So let's say, like, you don't need to time a light just right, and there's cars that have been waiting, and boom, you're starting to go, say, the number 2 lane, the lane on the right, and there's cars just starting to get into the intersection on your left-hand side. Rather than pass them through the intersection, slow down and pace them and ride right next to them until you clear the intersection.
Use them as a shield. So if somebody took a red light, you have a shield.
Exactly.
I caught myself doing that naturally, but that's a great piece of advice.
Yeah, and just pretend you're invisible. And don't get mad. Just remember this, too. If somebody does something, they almost hit you, they cut you off, and they're mad at you, you're mad at them, that means you weren't preparing for it, you weren't planning for it. So just accept the fact that means you could do a better job at predicting what the heck's going on around you. Don't get angry, just don't get hurt, and continue to learn and improve your ability to predict. I mean, we have to be psychic, so let's be psychics. All right?
Thank you, Quinn.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And there you have it, an amazing episode. I thought this was a great success. Shout out to the Ventura Police Department for cooperating and giving me this opportunity. Shout out to community outreach specialist Emily Graves for communicating and setting it up. And big shout out to my boy, Officer Quinn Redeker, for just sitting down and sharing his story. As you could see, this job's not easy. This is just the tip of the iceberg of what these police officers deal with. And a shout out to all police officers in general. to all the cool ones, the nice ones, the good ones, which is most of them. Shout out to you guys. Appreciate your services. We all do, regardless. We just don't like getting tickets and, paying big fines. But outside of that, everything else is cool. Until then, ride safe, ride hard, ride boundless.